How's it going, everybody? 2 weeks ago today, my new daughter Olivia was born, and my wife and I, of course, are just over the moon. We couldn't be happier to have a new member to the family. But as all of you parents out there know, with a newborn baby comes sleepless nights. So, needless to say, we are pretty exhausted, right? We're not getting much sleep. We're waking up every 2 to 3 hours to feed her. I think I'm averaging like 4.5, 5 hours of sleep per night, but it's broken up into 2-hour chunks. And I wanted to make a video to talk about sleep deprivation and how it affects your fitness. All right, I am on my walk right now, heading to a park. So I'm going to sit down. Hopefully you can hear me better and there'll be less wind at the park. All right, beautiful summer day and nobody's at the park. How about that? Now, before I tell you guys about how sleep impacts your workouts, specifically your recovery from your workouts, I want to mention that, it doesn't have to be a newborn baby that can cause you to be chronically sleep deprived. It could be something else stressful in your life, like maybe you're going through a divorce or you just had a bad breakup. Maybe the death of a loved one is stressing you out. Even just a really bad semester in college can cause you to lose sleep. So it's not necessarily just a newborn baby that's going to lead to the problem of lack of sleep. It's anything that we encounter in life. Now, it is a bit windy out here today, so I apologize if there's some wind noise. I did buy a wind muff for the microphone, so hopefully that's helping and you don't hear the wind so much. But when it comes to sleep, it really comes to recovery. And I forget which part of the sleep cycle it is. I know it's non-REM sleep. I want to say it's the third stage of non-REM. But there's a stage of our sleep cycle where we produce human growth hormone, testosterone, and these anabolic hormones are doing their job. This is when repair of muscle tissue and blood flow to muscle tissue really increases. So from a perspective of like intense strength training, or you're trying to build muscle, like bodybuilding kind of workouts, or any kind of athlete who's looking to just improve, you really need to get a good night's rest. And for me personally, now this is not going according to science, this is just what I've noticed, is I can get like 5 hours of sleep now and then, but I really aim for 6 to 8 hours on a very consistent basis. That is my absolute, what I try to do every night. I go to bed typically between, 10, around 10 o'clock is what I aim for, but sometimes it's between 10 and 11, and I don't get up till at least 6, sometimes 7 a.m. So I'm aiming for 8 hours, but it sometimes becomes like 6 to 8 depending on how much trouble I have sleeping. And that's on a normal night. Now, aside from the growth and repair part of it, there's also the cortisol side of it. So when you're chronically sleep deprived, your cortisol levels, and by the way, cortisol is a stress hormone. All right, it's part of what keeps you awake. So when you wake up in the morning, your cortisol levels are very high, and then as evening approaches and you're getting tired, your cortisol is decreasing. So that's what you want to happen, but when you're chronically sleep deprived and you're not getting enough rest, your cortisol levels are elevated. And what that's going to do is going to help keep you awake, help make you feel alert. The same thing for your adrenal hormones like epinephrine and norepinephrine that your adrenal glands produce. Those are going to be elevated too because you're taxing your adrenals to keep you awake, keep you feeling alert when you're not getting enough rest. Chronically elevated cortisol levels have been shown to, for one thing, they suppress testosterone. All right, so your testosterone, which is responsible for the repair of muscle tissue and many other things that are good for recovering from fitness, it's not going to be able to do its job as well. In addition, cortisol, when it's elevated for an extended time, can lead to an increase in body fat. So really, when you're sleep deprived, you have many things working against you, right? You have elevated stress hormones working against you, plus you're not getting that part of the sleep cycle enough to really initiate the muscle repair. So what do you do when you're going through a rough time in your life? You're stressed out, you're not sleeping enough day after day, even week after week. How do you deal with that? And should you keep working out? Well, let me tell you something. My daughter was born 2 weeks ago. For the first week, I kept working out, doing my intense strength training 3 times a week. And even though I forced myself to do that through the exhaustion, what I found was when I got to the second week, I couldn't even sleep. When my daughter fell asleep, we fed her in the night and she finally fell asleep. When I laid down to go back to sleep, I couldn't fall asleep. And I was like, what is going on? I'm exhausted. I was so exhausted. I felt like numb from lack of sleep, but yet I couldn't fall asleep. And what was happening is my cortisol levels were already elevated, right? My stress hormones were through the roof. And yet I was forcing myself to induce more stress through physical exercise, putting micro tears into my muscle and expecting them to repair when they obviously couldn't because I wasn't getting enough rest. So here I was thinking, I got a YouTube channel, I have an audience, I need to push myself even through this hard time. But what it ended up doing is working against me, and I became overstressed. So you should avoid doing the same thing. If you're going through a rough time, or when you are going through a rough time and you can't sleep, don't force yourself to do the intense workouts. Don't force yourself to do that intense strength training, all right? It's just going to add too much to your already overstressed life. Instead, what I recommend doing, what I'm doing right now, is I'm only going to do strength training when I happen to get a good night's rest the night before, okay? Which doesn't mean I'm going to be recovered, I'm going to be, performing better than the last workout, but I at least should feel up to it, like I'm not forcing myself to do it. And on the days where I'm overtired, I'm still going to keep active, like going on walks like I just did, right? But I'm also going to do yoga, static stretching, mobility exercises, animal flow, anything that's low intensity but keeps me moving my joints, improving, because you can still improve your flexibility. There's nothing saying you can't stretch, right? Or work on mobility even when you're tired. That's not the same as heavy resistance training that's breaking down your muscle. It might feel like you're moving backwards or you're standing still if you take a break from your hard strength training when you're going through a rough time and you're not sleeping well. But when you think about it this way, think of it like, even though you might be moving backwards, right? Like you imagine you're moving backwards, think of it as a slingshot, right? Because even though you feel like you're moving backwards, you can be working on your mobility. You can think ahead and say, okay, well, for my goal, whether it's, handstand push-ups or human flag or maybe just something more basic, think about what mobility and flexibility you need to improve on to eventually reach that goal. And you can work at that even when you're sleep deprived, all right? Even when you're exhausted, just doing static stretching, it's better than nothing, right? So even though you feel like you're moving backwards, it's like a slingshot. And when you finally let go and you're over the sleep deprivation, you will just launch forward towards your goal. Sorry this video is mainly just me talking to you, but for one, I wanted to tell you guys that my daughter was born, and that's why I didn't upload last week. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I didn't upload a video last Tuesday, and it's because I was just beat. I was exhausted. My daughter was just born, so I just couldn't do it. But also, I wanted to let you guys know what I'm going through with sleep deprivation, and to tell you guys what I recommend if you're going through it too, or when you do in the future, because it happens to all of us. It's best to just put things on hold. The intense training is just too much, right? If you're truly sleep deprived, you're already stressed out. You don't need the physical stress of exercise too. So you pause, you get as much rest as you can, do some low intensity aerobic exercise, maybe some mobility training. You can still plan ahead for the future. Think about what mobility training could help you with your upcoming goal, and you can still work on that. So it's not like you're making zero progress. You're just not going full speed ahead, if that makes sense. But then once you finally get over that stress, whatever's going on in your life, once you get over that event and you start sleeping better, then boom, you hit the ground running and you get right back to it. All right, now for the long walk home. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and make sure you stay tuned because, like I mentioned, I'll be doing a lot more mobility, so you can expect more mobility videos coming up on Minus the Gym, as well as nutrition. I'll throw in a little bit of nutrition too. And when I feel up to it, on the nights that I actually get rest and I feel rested enough, I will do more strength videos. Specifically, I want to do a full body workout with the base blocks set, the full set of base blocks equipment, all right? So make sure you stay tuned and check that out. I'll see you then.